As we all know, the coronavirus is global, has caused havoc, has caused involuntary and massive work from home mandates from companies, which is very different from normal mobile work. Furthermore, it's put major parts of our society on hold, posing challenges to our markets, school closings, reducing public and social gatherings, and health concerns to the elderly and high-risk populations. Now, before we all decide that it's happy hour, we do have some positive news. And it's because of these collective set of circumstances, we have the opportunity to embrace new ways of working in many cases, even though we haven't had a precedent. What we want to do today is empower you with some timely strategies and practices that we are gleaning from our member companies that you can take forward week 2. Kathy, I pass the virtual baton to you.
Thank you, Meryl, and hello again, everybody. Thanks so much. So I imagine, where's everybody coming from this morning? We might as well do a little bonding as we prepare for our shared experience here. I am in Minneapolis, where it's going to be 44 and sunny, and spring is, I believe, right around the corner. How's things in your neck of the woods, Meryl?
We definitely have some little bit of a white grayish area here in Bergen County, but we're supposed to get better as the week passes.
Excellent. And we have, Florida. Elizabeth has got it made. Minneapolis as well. Norwalk, Connecticut. And we got people from all over Long Island. Oh, hey, Mary. I see Mary from Long Island. Awesome. Well, today we want to, for the next hour, we really want to have an interactive experience. We want to hear from you and talk with you about how we can be as responsive as possible as we enter. I kind of feel this is we're just breaking into week 2. We kind of got blindsided a little bit last week. It's one of those situations. I know it's coming. I know it's coming. I know it's coming. Oh my gosh, it's here. So how do we gather up our resources? Although we've been preparing, how can we, really enable our people to do their best work no matter where they're located? So we want to start out with just take a quick look at technology, because we know the network is the workplace, right? That is where we're all. When we get up in the morning, we don't go to the workplace anywhere. We go to the network. How's our network doing? How's our technology? Do we have what we need? What are the resources that we can provide to our employees to help them do their very best work, even if they're not, technology savants, right? We want to make sure they have the tools. Is now the time to be learning some new things? I'm not so sure. And then we want to talk about just reinforcing our organizational messages, letting employees know, we're concerned about them. How can we support them? And then we want to encourage employees to really reset. How are they communicating and connecting, and empower managers to lead differently and have the autonomy and the trust to be successful in this new, very strange environment. And then we want to think about as well efficiencies. Work of the day, it's not going to be our typical work of the day. I was talking with my son, and he said, well, our customers are all isolated, so nobody's really going to be calling the help desk. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on developing a software system that we've had on the back burner for the last 6 months because we've been so busy with our clients. And then we're going to have discussion throughout this exchange. Really want to hear back from you about your experience, your questions. And the first question that we have for you is, where are you today? If you were going to look at your organization today regarding your response to this mobilization effort, would you say you're just starting out? And I'm going to ask you, you can either respond in the chat feature, or if you want, there are the annotation tools. If you have found a way to, like if I want to say, yep, we've got dots and X's, perfect. So where are you when it comes to being responsive in this? We have a few building our work from home currently. So Diana, they're doing it now. I think most of the people are kind of in that 50% range. Any other thoughts on this? You're ready? Jennifer, I know you're ready. Excuse me. Guardian is now 100% work from home. That's awesome. They've done a very good job creating resources and mobilizing. They were ready. Let's see. I'm a freelance designer working from home, but lots of my clients are shifting and sorting it out. 100% ready. Good. All right. So it looks like people are tipping more into that state of readiness. We're ready. And then we come to the question, Now what? I want to also ask you, as you consider your workplace flexibility initiatives or remote work initiatives, on this little spectrum, where would you consider your organizations? Are you basic? We're doing it because, we have to respond now, or do you have some policies in place? Or maybe you're more of a strategic focus and you're really rolling and integrating it into the organization, or are you rock stars and you're embedded into the culture? Carrie Smith is working from home except manufacturing. That's very good. 100% ready. Strategic focus. I think this is I think this is where organizations are going to tend to fall. It's going to be very interesting when this is done to see where we all land, because not only is this an opportunity to, test our contingency planning, but this is a tremendous opportunity to learn. So we have ideas too about what we do when this is over. We don't want to just go back to normal. I think we really need to measure what happened. And I think it's important for all of us on the call to keep that in mind as we have this experience, to say, oh, when it's over, I want to see how this went and this went and this went. This is such a spontaneous assessment that we are going to be able to do inside our organizations. We can look at it as a big challenge or as a great opportunity. Wayne says he is culturally embedded, but not completely until now. That's the other thing. Organizations who are just about ready to tip into the culturally embedded are being forced to jump that way now. I know lots of organizations have had their toe in the water, right? And they're thinking about it and they're testing it, and then it's like being at a pool party, someone ran up behind you and just threw you into the water. Bam, you're in and you're swimming. You got no choice. So as you're thinking about doing your best and helping your people to do their best in this time, I put the challenges, as Meryl and I have been talking with our clients, these are the challenges that they were really interested in understanding or wanting to support their employees through. These were some of the channels that they brought up, the topics. Technology to work from anywhere. We kind of have it. We don't have it. Our VPN is not great. If we have maybe we have a great VPN, or maybe it's such that only a segment of our population can log on at one time. So the technology, is that you can go ahead and use your annotation tools, or also put in the chat. Put in the chat if you want to state, what is it that brought you here today? What are you really hoping to walk away with as you begin to navigate these new waters? Collaboration and engagement, very good. And then we have our virtual leadership skills. We've all done a pretty good job in our organization of enabling remote work and mobile work, but do the leaders in our workspaces have the skill set they need, and how do we teach them in a just-in-time fashion? We've all moved into a kind of a reaction mode. So what is it? What are the nuts and bolts that we can deliver to our leaders to help them manage this dispersed workplace in a way that doesn't overwhelm them? It's going to be overwhelming enough. So how can we give them bite-sized pieces or skill snacks that will help them do 5 things that will make their teams more cohesive? Let's see, Wayne says, keeping everyone focused while not used to working at home, especially with kids at home. So true. And I almost had my granddaughter here today, but luckily it didn't have to happen. But I'm like, well, I think we're in that mindset. We all have to do what we have to do. And I think we're all going to be tolerant. And I think if we all set a mindset and encourage all of our colleagues and our workforces to set a mindset of assume good intent. In this day, nobody's really trying to get away from anything or away with anything. We're all just trying to do the best we can with the resources we have. Jennifer says, helping people not feel isolated and keeping engaged and supported. And that's absolutely important, especially as time goes on. If people are not used to working from anywhere, or working mobilely, there's an intention that really must happen for them to lean into the organization and stay connected, because I know I can slip into the vortex of work. I can fall into my computer screen and I'll open my eyes 6 hours later and say, whoa, what just happened? the day flies by. And you can begin to feel lonely and you can become unhealthy. And I have a feeling that this is going to be going on for quite a while. So what can organizations do to empower and give the tools, not just to the managers, but to the individual contributors? And I think that really starts with reinforcing the company's purpose and core values. Raise your hand. Gail has shared delegation is key, using all the people resources. Absolutely. So as we have seen our organizations respond, some of us here are with great big organizations where we're getting messages from our CEO. Some of us here are mid-sized. Some of us here are small organizations. Perhaps we're seeing messages from our clients that are coming in and telling how are they reinforcing and supporting employees as they navigate working in new ways and working from home and staying connected. So if anyone has an example, I can also unmute and we can share by talking. I don't know, I think we got about 30 people on the call, but if somebody would like to share, I can, if you want to put a note in the chat, I can go ahead and unmute you. Share an example of what your organization is doing. I know that many organizations are creating central communication pages. The CEO is messaging important information, but then they're cascading. And I think that's the key, is we need to make sure that the meaningful messages coming from the leadership are cascading. It can't be one and done. It can't be an email, and it can't hardly even be a weekly email. It needs to be a verbal connection and communication from the frontline managers. And when we've done focus groups in the past and we talk with employees, we ask, how do you want to hear information? And they all say, I want the information that's important to me. What I listen to is a message from my manager. So reinforcing what is the company's mission and the vision, and confirming that health is the number one concern, and being open to failure, mistakes, and letting people know it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be the best we can do. So supporting new and different ways. And most importantly, we have to have our leaders. Oh, Gail here says, I think leaders must be transparent. Absolutely. To speak how new this is and how all of the answers aren't really available yet. That's correct. And leaders have to, they might not be used to modeling new and virtual behaviors. How many of you, if you have a Yammer forum that you're using inside your workplaces where people are connecting, I hear lots of organizations say, well, we have Yammer, but it's not all that well used. How many here have Yammer that they're using? So if we want our leaders to help support and carry messaging across all the different channels that are available to us today, not traditional channels that we're used to, but the ones we have today, we need them to log. They need to go into Yammer. Mary says, yes, Yammer, they're sharing stories very robustly this week. Everyone's putting pictures of their dogs and their kids. But what I'm saying is get your leaders to get in there. The senior executives, they don't tread there too often. So it would be a good example of leadership modeling in the virtual workplace. Elizabeth says, I am taking the time now to call, live talk. Yeah, talking in person, just like you would if you were in the office. Go, hey, wait a minute, Jennifer, did you get this done? Or I have a question. I have been yammering on. Meryl, I'm going to give you an opportunity to jump in here with your thoughts too, because she's been talking, with organizations. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just came from an organization last week, and it's just so ironic. This organization was really looking to shore up their management competencies and core values before this all happened. They had asked us to help them there. And if you just think about in normal BAU times, needing to look at your core values and your competencies and asking your managers to be better leaders, that was what they were prioritizing. And now this whole situation is causing people to really dig deep and rethink how they're doing these things. Looking at how they really can be contributing at a high level, having leaders remind people what are the values of the company, we care about you, we need you now to be your best. So I believe this reinforcing piece is quite positive because leaders have the opportunity to not only just be professionally directive, but really from a personal perspective, reach out to their people, let them know that now more than ever, the values of the company, we really want people to relate to them and to showcase their being their very best during a time that can be tough. And I think, bluntly, I think we're going to see some really excellent kind of takeaways from this. We're going to see the best leaders shine, and we're going to see leaders who maybe are high potential, who maybe were not sure how to do things, are going to really hit their stride. So I see some positive opportunity here with regard to values, leadership, and communication.
All right. And any additional thoughts, questions, or ideas from our audience? I see Leah, virtual coffee, absolutely. Team meetings. My company's Firmwide has set up a COVID-19 task force with an email address for people to address their concerns, et cetera. Yep. Lots of centralized communication happening. It's such a good idea. Give people one place to go for the resources they need to carry on. All right, good. And the reason this is so important, this is research that we have used in our presentations lately, and it just talks about the disconnect that can happen over time as people are working remotely. Because when you get in a silo, when you're by yourself, you can start to feel isolated, and oftentimes then the voices kind of come in, and perceptions are formed. And, so much of our communication is done through technology that we don't see the inflection in the voice, and we don't see, people nodding and smiling, right? So the remote worker falls victim to these, to these happenings. Colleagues don't fight for my priorities. Colleagues are saying bad things about me behind my back. They're making changes on projects without warning me. Colleagues are lobbying against me, so there's a lot of negative swirl. There's some really good stuff that happens with remote work, true, productivity, health, etc. But there's a swirl in the background, and that's where you need to stay intentional about keeping people engaged. And one of the best ways to do that is, number one, have the team set up their technology norms. I can't remember who said it on here, but maybe Jennifer, Elizabeth. Yes, Elizabeth said, taking time now, excuse me, taking time now to use the phone instead of just instant messaging. So if you have a toolkit, or we can help you make a list, but give teams a checklist to help them understand what's the best technology to use, since all the communication is going to have to be done literally through technology. What is working well today? What is not working? Are we in a position to onboard some new technologies that will make our collaboration a little bit more stronger and build those human connections that we're going to miss out of when we are working away from the office? And then have a conversation with the team, deciding, okay, when it comes to long communications, we're going to use email if there's information about instruction. If we have a quick question, we're going to use a text, our Skype message or instant message. If we have a situation that could be emotional or challenging or hard to communicate, we're going to use the phone. And I know these are basic, no-nonsense tips that those of us on the call very likely know, but that doesn't mean that the managers, your workhorses on the front line who are trying to, hurry and adapt to this situation, that doesn't necessarily mean they know that. So if you could put together, 4 tips on how to help your team, and we can help you do this, but how to help your team figure out what technology is working. And I'm not talking pages of guides. I'm saying 5 bullet points, and then 5 questions that your team will agree to. So a new team norm, a technology norm, can be established. Meryl, do you have any thoughts on that? Any additional thing to weigh in on, or others who perhaps have a best practice in this area?
I'll defer to the audience for a moment, please.
Mm-hmm. But we're all of us, recent research tells us that only 75% of employees, professional employees own, no wait, I gotta say it right. 75% of employees use very traditional technology. which means they really are just using email. They're really just attaching documents to their email. So how do you get employees to upskill that? And we do that through one idea that we have had too, and we're encouraging organizations, is to share your technology training. I know with many of our clients, they all have a lot of really good technology training. Sometimes it's buried. Maybe it's in a subpage or it's in your stream channel, but this is a really good time to tease out maybe some 5 really strong technology training on-demand videos that you likely have in your own video library on your intranet, or easily obtained through YouTube or other on Microsoft's training. But now is the time to pull those up again and say, if you're not sure how to use OneDrive, here's a 5-minute video to help you and your team. Now, I see Jody has a question. How do you communicate employee resignations or terminations to your teams, giving this new challenge? Well, the question is, how have you communicated it in the past? So if you say, okay, if we're going to have to do a termination, we're going to call Bob into the office, we're going to schedule face-to-face, we'll have a face-to-face with the manager. I think you just replicate that process, except it's now all video. It would have to be all video. So it's the same experience. We're meeting face-to-face, we're having a conversation. There's probably going to be some documentation that needs to be reviewed. Just using technology channels to deliver that.
Kathy, can I add to that?
And then let's see, Carrie.
Kathy?
Yes.
I'd like to just add to Jody's question, response to her question, and maybe build on it. And I would build on that by saying what people are asking us is, how do we prepare for difficult conversations? So Jody, to your point, the resignation or termination, but what if it's just a difficult conversation? And we're going to have them, and they're going to only be exacerbated sometimes because we're maybe feeling some apprehension about having them. So what we're telling people is prepare talking points on how you would handle this virtually. Like, take a moment before you just jump on to really be mindful and prepared. And consider your words really carefully, how they'll be interpreted or misinterpreted, especially if you don't have the camera. I would definitely advise any difficult conversation that you do use a camera, if possible, because those verbal cues, without having them, it makes it even tougher. Definitely encourage two-way conversation. Recap what's being shared for mutual concurrence, and agree on next steps. So it's really important, the alignment that you might not normally get in a situation. It's really important to have that and share that not only with your words, but again through any kind of cues and verbal cues that you can have while using a camera.
Excellent. All right. And then Gail says, talking points and keep notes, check for understanding. See, that's why it's so important to have access to video, is to be able to make sure that the listener is actually understanding the message. Excuse me. So on the next slide, I want to talk about resetting communication norms. And again, this is another opportunity for organizations to help managers structure their day. You know, when we were in the office for the most part, and we had all the signals and the triggers that made us do a variety of things, right? Oh, it's, I see this person walking to the door. It's time to go to the meeting. When we're alone in our homes, all the triggers of a traditional workplace disappear. So managers need to have some formal structure that will help them keep their teams on track. And we recommend that organizations send out a schedule, just a recommended schedule or a suggested schedule, or if you want to call it guidelines. Lord knows we don't want to tell everybody exactly how to run their teams, but just giving them some structure to reduce the anxiety of, wow, how do I lead now? And Meryl and I really, as we've worked with teams, recommending, when, especially in this situation, we don't normally recommend a morning stand-up meeting every morning, but I think in this situation, especially if the team is very new to working dispersed, that every morning they connect for 15 minutes on Skype or Teams or whatever their technology is, and just do a quick check-in. This could be a 10 or 15-minute meeting, but really recommending that people are together, they're asking questions, everybody understands what the mission and goal is of the day, and then they can go forward from there. that really goes a long way in opening the door to back and forth discussion throughout the day. Another recommendation, you've heard this before, is please use your camera. I think people are going to, we've had a lot of anxiety around camera use. I have had as well. I'm not a fan of it, but if I see somebody with their camera on, I'll always turn my camera on, so we can be together. So getting people to use their camera, even if it's only for 10 minutes during the meeting. You don't have to leave. Maybe you don't leave the camera on for the whole time. Maybe you just turn it on for 10 minutes as you look into each other's faces and say, how's everybody doing? How are you doing? Whatever your personal update. I always like to do news and good from home and work, just to keep that connection, that sense of belonging going. And then throughout the day, I think it's a good idea in this situation is to have all of your team, if possible, just gathering in Skype. So you have just a little Skype group or a Teams group, or Slack, whatever your technology is, where you can just casually be pinging each other throughout the day. Oh, hey, has anyone heard from Carol about, the response on this project? Just a virtual room. And I think someone put that in the chat section too, that they are creating a virtual room, a lounge, which allows you to to share information, share photos, share videos. So having something like that for your team. And remember, take breaks together. Sometimes when you're all working in the office, the whole group will go down for lunch. We'll have a virtual lunch together and have a virtual coffee break. Just have, and this is what the leader needs to know. These are the tips that the leader needs to know, is to be intentional about how you are connecting. Look at Jody, they're setting up a virtual happy hour. I think that's great. Carrie just bought a camera today because we need that. That's great. Here's Leah's going to do meeting to play an online game later today. All of those things. And I think, this is a challenging situation that we're in, but it's also an interesting time for people to get out of the box and really explore how we are going to connect during this time of crisis. And I think the outcome long-term is going to be a really good one. And also end of day check-in again, just bringing people together, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, end of the day. How'd you do? Do you need anything? Everybody good? Great. We'll see you tomorrow. So those, resetting those communication norms. And I think inside the organization, in the leadership role that you're in, is just getting those quick tips to managers, saying, here's a recommended guideline for structuring your day. Let's see. And Carrie's also doing a virtual happy hour. Well, maybe we should do a virtual happy hour. It's St. Patrick's Day, by the way. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We can have a green beer for lunch. Meryl, do you have any other thoughts or suggestions when it comes to this? We have lots of good ideas coming in.
Absolutely. I think there's a few things. I think, first of all, again, having the teams work together to decide how this all looks. I mean, I can't imagine a leader of a company mandating everybody to do the same thing. So I think there's a whole opportunity around empowerment, having employees in a team, work together on this. Also, there's a whole generational opportunity here, and I don't want to go off too much on this, but we have different generations in the workplace, and clearly there might be certain parts of our workplace where people are more comfortable with technology and communication and can really bring some more innovative ideas. And they also have to be patient for those who might not be as change focused and change oriented. And I think, Randy Kesterson, we have you on the phone here with us. You do a lot of work on change management. But this is a big change for some people. I'm looking at the chats. There's some people, this is a no-brainer. I know for Kathy and I, we've run virtual businesses for many years. And, with this whole change for us, it was very business as usual. We got to our home offices and hit the ground running. For people who have never done this, or people of different generations, or people who are resistors, this is a big, big leap. So I think there's an opportunity to be sensitive and solve for those who might not know how to do this and bring them along. Randy, I don't know, when you have a moment, if you do have any comments in the chat or in general, would love to hear from you on any of that.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And now is also, I'm sure many of you know of individuals inside your organizations who perhaps are resistant to the idea of remote work. Now is a really good time to reinforce them, just to be checking in with them, saying, are you feeling okay? Do you have what you need? Because this is a great opportunity for them to understand that this is a brilliant business continuity strategy and a brilliant way to do business. So we want them to be comfortable. We don't want them coming out of this, especially if they're in a leadership position. We don't want them coming out of this saying, oh my gosh, never again, right? So we want to make sure they're feeling empowered. And then setting those collaboration expectations. Once again, this would be a communication that would go from leadership to team leaders about clearly outlining communication and collaboration expectations. So what I'm talking about here is really setting response times, giving leaders an outline of expected response times. And you may or may not have done this inside of your organization, but this is such an easy team practice. These would include expectations around response time to email, right? So during the crisis, if we are sending out an email, we would expect a response to email within 2 hours, 24 hours, whatever works for the team model. How about phone calls? If we're leaving a phone call, we expect that you will return our call within 1 hour, or a text message, we would expect you would get back to us within 30 minutes, and give them an acceleration process that will lead to a team contingency plan, just like the organization has a contingency plan. We don't know how this pandemic is going to impact our individuals working from home. They could very well fall sick. What's going to happen if we're not able to reach them? So teams need to be strategic now, establish these simple expectations about response times and urgent matters, and have those framed up as a blueprint for success as they go forward. And what they'll find, we've done this with other teams that are even traditional teams, is they'll integrate these practices into their long-term, into the long-term behaviors of the team, and it just clarifies expectations. People are again, we're trying to do what we can to reduce anxiety. So if people have more information up front about the expectations, they're going to be they're going to be more responsive, and they're going to have a reduction in anxiety. Let's see, Dory has said one of the companies that she works with is having weekly virtual coffee hour chats. That's a good idea, having a roundtable to share maybe some of these best practices online or in your virtual environments. Maybe it's a Skype meeting where you have internal leaders saying, well, we're on week 2, and that's not a bad idea. Get your people to share their experience with each other. Maybe it's a handful of leaders that come together and do a panel discussion and says, this is what we're doing, this is what's working, we tried this, it didn't work. But just being transparent, building trust. Gail is saying empathy, empathy, empathy. Very stressful, and it will impact the employee experience in different ways. That's why, especially now, it's important to be transparent. Meryl or others have thoughts around setting those collaboration expectations. Again, these are simple practices, very effective when they're put into place.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add, and I think you covered that really well, is just really thinking about this whole idea of, and I'm going to build on what Gail said about empathy. Again, this is a different situation. It's less about business as usual. So really thinking through how we're collaborating and dealing with people. And the whole idea of employee engagement is huge. I would build on that as well, is being intentional around keeping your teams connected and collaborating. Extending appreciation and thanks, checking in with people. I mean, those things that we maybe rush when we are in the office, or we cut short, taking just the extra moment to do that, I think is just going to really, really help people. So again, that's what, those are some things I would just reinforce. Thanks, Kathy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And anyone else, thoughts, examples? Okay. And the last priority that we think is important is making efficiency a priority. This isn't, we have talked for many, many years, decades, about low value and high value work. And this is an opportunity to really step back and look at what are we spending our time on, and really reduce the low value work. We don't, if we have meetings, many of us live in a meeting culture, right? Where we're just kind of rushing from one meeting to another. And oftentimes that means getting up and, going to another room. Sometimes it means just online meetings, but there is an opportunity to reduce our meeting appetite right now. Everyone I've talked to, focus groups I've had, I'd say I'm at 99% agree that we have too many meetings. Well, now is the time to start to reduce the meetings, and also for managers to be mindful of sitting hour after hour after hour in the virtual meetings. So once again, this is another opportunity for organizations to provide managers with a simple bulleted list about meeting engagement. Don't let it be more than an hour at the most. Don't be afraid to end early, right? Use annotation tools or use the whiteboard. We all have to get a little bit more creative about how we are connecting to keep it interesting. I mean, it's intriguing a little bit right now to kind of be at home and look out my window, and there's a little bit of there's a rush of this is different. This is going to wear off. So we need to be thoughtful about how do we keep people engaged, and as many of you have shared, keep people away from feeling isolated and lonely. Also, this is a great time to really think about workflows and time zones. We have optimizing workflow. As I said, the work that we're doing, my work personally, it just changed dramatically. My work kind of stopped. So I do a lot of on-site workshops for organizations, and I just got a whole slew of cancellations. And it's like, well, we don't need to cancel. We don't have to cancel. What we can do is switch to a web-based format. So it's important to keep employees, if you're delivering wellness workshops or different services that were normally going to be online, really think differently and optimize technology so you can deliver them in a different format. We don't want to not do things because we're working this way. We want to do things differently. So keeping in mind the process that you do it in, keeping in mind the time zones people are working in, and anticipate if you can, what's not in front of you, thinking ahead. I know Jennifer and Mary, they have a lot of town hall meetings. So I'm imagining they're going to have a lot of town hall meetings coming up. Are they going to be canceled, or are they just going to be shifted and people are going to be able to join through technology? And then, of course, using the right technology. This is not the time to unroll anything brand new. Now is the time to be logical and use the right technology for the work that you're doing. Mastering the meeting proficiencies, like I said, keeping people engaged. And then really embracing the environment. People should, let's see, Leah says, not just time zones. Some people have kids at home. It's so true with them. So it's best for them to work in the evening, right? Or you just take down, we just take down the curtain and say, this is our new normal. Here's my granddaughter who I'm babysitting while my, daughter works at a school. So, we have to, like I said at the beginning, we have to assume good intent. That's the best place to start from. Assume good intent. Use the technology that we are good at. We don't need to learn anything brand new right away. Be efficient as possible. And just embrace the environment and trust that we're all going to do our best. And we have given you a lot of ideas about providing tips and tools to your managers, just quick skills that you can deliver. So they have some structure to put in place right away. And Meryl, I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
No, absolutely. And I just would headline everything you've been saying around just the efficiency part. I'll just go back to meetings just because I know probably everyone on the line here would be, we had too many meetings. And I really think that and we can provide this to you all, many of you might have it, but the idea of, what are your best practices around meetings and get everyone shored up on that. everything from agendas to getting on early to having someone, making sure not everyone's at a meeting. If they don't need it, do you really need the meeting? So again, there's some efficiencies around what we do that now that we're virtual, we can be a little bit more honest about. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the one of the big takeaways. I believe there's an efficiency opportunity here. We talked about workflows and time zones. I know at our company, we have people across the United States. I'm being more deliberate and thinking more now about that too, because to some of the points, like Leah's point about kids, and I'm thinking about each person who's on my team. What's their personal situation? Do they have kids at home? Do they have an elder care situation? Are they really, really the type of people that wake up really early? So I'm trying to work and plug into each of my team members so I get the best out of them. And also, I think they're trying to, move, kind of reach a little higher too, given they have some time to pause. So I think, again, it's really about meeting people where they are in terms of their technology, their habits, their capabilities. And being as sensitive and yet holding people as accountable as possible to bring their best to the situation.
Well, and Gail has, she just unveiled the elephant in the room. Managers need to measure what gets done, not when or how it gets done. And there's going to be a lot of that happening, especially with people, with children at home or elders they need to care for, having to run errands in the middle of the day. Will managers be reeling and wondering, are they really doing it? So, performance management has always been a challenge inside organizations. I don't know if many that get it right, but really it's true. And one idea that I have about performance management is tell me, we say measure what gets done. Maybe if you just tell me what didn't get done so I can do it. Oftentimes, we're so busy making this list of things that we have to get done. And I think we're all pretty familiar with the roles that we play in the work that does in fact need to get done. Instead of, spending so much time and effort saying, I did this and I did this and I did this and I did this, to just be able to come together with your leader and say, what else do you need? And they say, I need you to get this and that done. What didn't get done? Instead of looking at the big list of what they should be getting done. That's just a different perspective because I think performance management is a challenge no matter where you're working. And Robin Hardman says, can be positives to kids at home. Employees who have older kids, college students at home with them can probably get help with technology from your kids. So true, Robin. So anyways, any other thoughts, questions about this, about the information we've shared? All right. Well, listen, we have resources and tips. Oh, thanks, Elizabeth. We have resources and tips. If you want toolkits or checklists, we have that available. If you want to send an email, please do. And I hope that you all enjoyed our talk. And Meryl's going to tell us we're thinking we're going to do this every week, just to do a little roundtable check-in, just for 45 minutes, and see how everyone's doing.
Kathy, thank you, and thank you, everyone. Before we do anything else, I know people have to run. We want to be on time. Does anyone have any questions that they haven't put in the chat that they'd like to ask us? We want to give you a moment to do that.
And Dory says, thanks so much for doing this. Even as an outsider, for most companies, it is helpful for me to have this information to help them feel more comfortable as they navigate forward with me and others. See, I think that's all we all want. We just want to be a little more comfortable. We just want a little reassurance.
Great.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that I would just say to everybody is, what we'd like to do is we'd like to hold, like Kathy just said, we'd like to hold this next session next week at the same time. So we'll send out an invitation to you all. So, you can get back on. And the only other thing that I would close with is that we do see a silver lining. And Kathy and I, we're in the business of seeing a silver lining because we're big work from home and mobile advocates. And we think that this is going to help companies be very prepared for any worst case scenario because of what they're doing now. And we think they'll be able to right size it create a right-sized blueprint for their companies for remote work when things get back to normal, around engagement, collaboration, and communication that'll transcend wherever people work. So we definitely look forward to continuing the conversation. We will post our invite next week. Again, we're looking at the same time, the Tuesday at noon Eastern. And if you have any questions or things you'd like us to bring up, please feel free to put them into the chat or email Kathy or I so that we can continue to make this a forum that works for everyone.
Yeah, and we're going to send the PowerPoint out. So
correct.
Yeah. All right, you guys have been awesome and very fun to practice doing our annotation tools, and we'll think of more creative things just to get us all acclimated to this new virtual workplace.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.